Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, all. I see I've already got several people here waiting for me. Very wonderful. Delightful to see you all. And welcome to Tea with G. I have my tea. Actually, it's mate, which is a kind of tea, I guess. A South American tea. And it's really wonderful to hang out with you guys. This is the high point of my 2 weeks. This is what I love doing most. And happy birthday, Roberto. I guess I just noticed that that's your birthday. Very happy birthday. Mine's coming up soon. I chose the subject today of the divine mind, and it came to me yesterday. It's interesting because it was a term I used to use a lot back in the days when I was doing metaphysical healing and spiritual healing and the like. And it was distinguished from the carnal mind or mortal mind. And it's actually a very good distinction that the metaphysics made about that. One that I think is extremely useful. Oh, here. Turn that off because it gets very. I think the microphone picks up the shh, and we don't want that. So one, boom, off. And it's a very good distinction between what one could call the mind of God and one would call the human mind. And the human mind being really the mind of intellect, of reason, of learning, or of lack of intellect, lack of reason, lack of learning. The mind that is subject to illusion and delusion as well as it is to inspiration and creativity. That's full of all sorts of foibles and mistakes and misinterpretations and associations and the like. And we tend to project upon the transcendent state, call it God if you like, our own human foibles and characteristics, just like we see God as a person, a magnified person, a super being, a superhuman being, as it were, and with all of our best qualities and our worst qualities, and mostly our worst qualities. We kind of tend to add our own jealousy and anger and venom and divisiveness and sectarianism and tribalism, and we project it on God. So he's the God of my tribe, not yours. I mean, he's the one who chose who won the Super Bowl, right? So obviously San Francisco, yeah, well, for obvious reasons, it was going to lose because God doesn't like that place. It's pretty funny, really, when you look at it. So what do I mean when I say the divine mind, then? Because we want to define mind, the highest part of mind, the highest aspect of mind that we can possibly grasp, and associate that with the divine. I think a good comparison for it is the word shunyata, which is emptiness in Sanskrit. In Buddhism, it's always translated as emptiness. But if you look at the Sanskrit itself, it's a very interesting word, because it means a pregnant emptiness. Now, that to me is just so full of imagery and meaning. And it refers to not emptiness as vacuous or void, but emptiness as pure burgeoning potential, giving birth every single moment to what we call the universe. It is the innate, inexhaustible intelligence and creative power. And the beauty of it is that the nature of shunyata is your nature. When it's no longer a person, no longer a thing, but this kind of the vastness almost of space itself that has no inherent form, but is pregnant with all sorts of form, we see that it is the nature of things. It is the divine nature. That is, it is your own divinity. This means that whatever characteristic or quality you can associate with the ultimate, with the transcendent, with that which is beyond all categorization, is referring to you. The thing about the human being is that there isn't a God, a divine mind, and this carnal, a human mind. There's only the one. The manifestation of the divine mind is what we call a human being. So you, in all of your humanness, are the divinity in all of its divineness. You cannot separate the two. This is the real meaning of non-duality. Not two. There are not two. There isn't this ultimate, perfect, enlightened state and my human delusion. They are one. We are beyond both enlightenment and delusion, between reality and illusion, between wisdom and ignorance. We are beyond both and witness both. And if you just look for a moment, you can see that is what your experience actually is. You are somehow aware of both ignorance and wisdom. When you hear wisdom, you know it. When you see ignorance, you know it. To the degree that you yourself are free of ignorance and living in wisdom, to that degree, you see it all. And the only thing that would mark the human with any kind of separation whatsoever is mistaking ignorance for wisdom, mistaking knowledge for wisdom, simple knowledge for wisdom. The human mind is not intrinsic. It has nothing in and of itself. It has no inherent truth. It can only work with whatever it has. So if I believe this to be true, my mind will then take that and run with it as if it is true and create for me an entire reality, an entire experience, an entire life based on that fundamental premise. But the human mind, as an entity, cannot distinguish or determine whether or not that belief is true. Our modes of reason and thinking and working things out, which we normally associate with mind, cannot find that which is absolutely truth unless it's derived from something it already knows. So when you're talking about the divine mind, it's a synonym for truth. It is inherent knowing. It is knowing of itself. It knows who and what it is, and the truth of it is inherent in it. It doesn't look to anything outside of itself. When that is discovered, it kind of takes over the human mind and begins directing thought. It begins directing creativity, directing motivation and action and impulse. Because now the human mind has a reference point that is absolutely solid. You've started to build on rock instead of sand. And from that, everything that would be derived from that would be humanly derived in terms of creative expression and action and engagement, would be a reflection of that. It would embody that. It would show that forth. And so the shunyata, the emptiness, that which cannot be seen or touched, is seen in that which manifests. It's like looking in a mirror. The mirror is an exact replica. Imagine a 3D mirror, 4D, 10D. I don't care how many Ds you want to make. Imagine that as a mirror, reflecting in every conceivable dimension that infinite which is beyond all form. The mirror is never the original, and yet is an exact likeness of the original. And in fact, in some translations of the Bible, and I think it was the Hebrew dictionary that I read it, when it said that God made man in his image and likeness, it referred to after the mind of God. That in fact it was the mind of God known. So the universe is mind. Everything you experience is mind. Nothing exists separate from mind. But like every other spiritual word, mind has to come to be associated with shunyata, with the emptiness, with the pure potential, with the truth, with the rock of that being that is not a conclusion drawn from anything else, but is in itself. It is in and of itself, which is, of course, the nature of reality. I say, of course, as if it, oh yeah, well, of course. The nature of reality is self-existence, self-luminous, self-validating. It is what it is. Oh, that's a horrible way of saying it. It is what is. You know, if we look at all of creation, we find that all creation is an appearance of something smaller than itself. We find that if we look at the world that we're in, everything in it is on the level that we normally perceive it as human beings. We see a tree and we see flowers, and I'm looking out the back window here, and there's grass and a fence, and the wind is blowing, and it's all really quite lovely. But that's this level of perception. I could zoom in, and I could look at the tree, and I would see, well, the tree is wood. It's branches and leaves, and it's in relationship to the sun, and it's absorbing things, and it's blowing things around, and it's going to seed. And then I could zoom in on the wood or the branch or any part of it, and I would find yet made of something else. At every level, we're seeing an appearance of something that exists at a lower level outside the realm of our perception. You might even call it outside of our realm of consciousness. You keep going, and you keep going down to the molecular level, the atomic level, and ultimately, at least in science, they've gotten to what they call quantum fields. And a quantum field is not a thing at all. Matter of fact, it is non-spatial. It does not exist in space and time. It exists everywhere simultaneously. Hence, you can have two events happening at the opposite side of the universe that are in fact in constant communication with one another, however it is that these little things. So what we see as an atom or a quark is in fact, on a lower level, simply, they call it an excitation of the field, like a wave in the ocean. Now, what is it really? Well, it's the tree, right? My experience of every day, it's a tree, but it's not a tree. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, and then I am the mountain, then there is just the mountain. And so we span this entire thing. But notice at every point we get to something more and more essential. And even the perceivable, at least through mathematical models of the quantum, from where does that arise? Is there something even more fundamental to that? And I would say yes. And that is the true nature of mind. That is the Buddha mind, the Christ mind. As Paul said, let that mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And so the mind becomes substance, that of which everything is made. As a matter of fact, the word matter, the original meaning of it simply means the substance from which things are made. It has come to mean total physicality, with this idea that somehow the world exists separate from mind, separate from consciousness, and therefore must be made out of something, and what it's made of is what we call matter. We have no idea what it is, right? Matter's been boiled down to this non-spatial field with a bunch of little ripples running through it. What the hell is that? But interestingly enough, the word matter derives from an earlier word I believe in Greek, mater, which stands for mother. It's the word for mother, which became matter. that from which everything comes. Of course, it's mother. It would be the mother. And the only disagreement that non-duality has with science is that from which everything springs is in fact mind or consciousness, and not from some mysterious substance that somehow, through completely unconscious mechanistic processes, became self-aware. When you really think about it, it's about as absurd as you can get. The divine mind is you. You can say, I am the divine mind. And I am this human expression of it. You can use that I and point in either direction. When you go one side or the other, you have fallen into error. You've fallen into a mistake. Because on one side you'd have the materialistic. Oh, I am just this person, this body, this life that starts here and ends here, and my entire existence is summed up in that little dash, 1952 to question mark so far, that in between that's on the gravestone. Or you can fall into what a lot of non-dual teachers fall into, a lot of non-dual students fall into, which is a complete denial of this, and it's just, I am just that. I'm just this. Not true. If there's really non-duality, it has to make sense of all of it, not just the parts you like and try to explain away the rest. It's got to explain all human experience. And if we see the divine mind, well, what's the nature of a mind? The nature of a mind is not static, it's not a thing, right? It's shunyata, it's emptiness, the pure potential. So what would be the nature of a mind? Well, it would be to contemplate, to ponder. And if I am the divine mind, what do I contemplate? The only thing that exists, which is myself. And when I contemplate myself, what is my experience of myself? That is what we call the human being and the universe. The self-awareness of all things. The universe being the very manifestation of it. You are that divine mind. You are that truth. You are the self. Appearing as Rosario and Brent and David and Elaine and Dorte and Robbie and Mystic Poet and Shanae and whoever else is here. And yet you are that which cannot be put into words. I guess I'll take a sip from my tea when it's still hot and leave it at that and go back and start saying hello to everyone and welcome to Tea with G, kind of my title for satsang, because it is classic satsang, discourse followed by questions and answers. It is pretty much, it's been being done for, 10,000 years, probably even longer than that, orally. So, hello, Roberto, and happy birthday. Everybody wishes you a happy birthday. High from the highway. Just as long as you're not high on the highway, then we all feel safe and comfortable. There's Rosario, also in Madrid, but Roberto, where are you? You're on the highway, but where are you? On your way someplace fun, I am sure. He's got like the best job. No, I've got the best job ever. He's got the second best job. Hello, Mary. So good to see you. There's Brent, David and Elaine. And happy birthday, they say to Roberto. There's Dorte in Denmark. There's Shanae. Oh, it's been a while. Can't wait to tune in and soak up the divine vibes. So good to have you. So good to have you. Yes, you've been missed. You're in trouble. You're tardy. I was about to send out the truant officer. Hey, there's Robbie in Romania. There's my mystic poet in the north of France. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I'm very jealous of that. There's Barbro in Sweden. There's Ava in Poland. There's GM. Hello, GM from Moldova. Yeah, did I say that? Yeah, Moldova. And greetings from Sweden. And more happy birthdays to Roberto. There's Carlin in Ireland. There's me, 23. Thank you, GP. Love you too. Lots of flowers and hearts. Beautiful. Thank you. Hey, there's Marcel. Hey, G. So good to see and hear you. Love from Marcel in Germany. You know what? I'm having a bit of a hard time seeing this. I'm going to have to make it bigger. Okay. Good thing I'm not as old as my eyes. Let's see here. Hey, Tabby. Hello. Dear G, could you please guide about how to forgive oneself and forgive your parents, brothers, wife, in-laws for their misbehaviors? Is there any exercise of forgiveness? Oh, wow. What a big question. And you know, the whole foundation of Christianity was forgiveness. The forgiveness of sins even before you ask for it. It's just there. It's there for the taking. I always like to point out that in particular the episode where the woman is taken in adultery. She's taken right in the act of sex with somebody who is not her husband. Or maybe she wasn't married at all. Either case, they didn't like that idea. Women needed to be strictly controlled. It's a very patriarchal culture. They want to use it as a way of trapping him into disobeying the law, in which case they could stone him to death, as they were intending to do to the poor lady who had let her passions get the better of her, as we have been doing since time immemorial, long before we had these silly rules against it. Anyway, nonetheless, they brought it. They threw her down at his feet, and says she was taken in the act of adultery. The law says we're supposed to stone her to death. What do you say? Now they knew obviously that he was a forgiving guy. He'd let anybody off the hook. He did not hold anybody to any that kind of punishment, especially the crime, the capital punishment for simply making love. So he was in a predicament, wasn't he? Well, he did something quite brilliant. He turned the tables on them, and he said, any of you who are without sin, let them cast the first stone. Now, no self-respecting Jew could possibly admit, at least in public, that he hadn't sinned, so the stones went down. They all walked away till there was nobody there. And this is where the magic happens. And I wish every fundamentalist Christian would look at this and get the real meaning of it. Because what he said was, woman, where are your accusers? And she said, they've all gone, Lord. He says, well, neither do I accuse you. Go, sin no more. Now, he didn't ask her to accept him as his personal savior. She didn't even ask her anything. He just said, your accuser's still here? No. Well, I'm not going to either. Have a nice day. There was no prerequisites whatsoever. Didn't have to accept a theology, didn't have to accept him. He didn't have to accept him as the Messiah or the Son of God or God incarnate or any of that. He just gave it. With such power and such love, you can be sure she probably was reformed in that moment. We don't really know what happened to her after that. But I suspect that it completely transformed her life. And it showed a completely different way of being in interaction with people who, according to the law, both the law of the land or your own personal law, deserve your condemnation. Now, there's no exercise I can give you. Right? But what I can do is tell you this. If you have gotten to the point where you can find your own forgiveness, where you can find your own redemption from all of your transgressions, throwing down all the rocks that you throw to somebody else and walking away, when you come to terms with yourself, you'll discover your inherent innocence. You'll discover your identity as the divine, as I was saying in the opening discourse. You'll discover that that's who you are. And that has never sinned. It's never done anything that required being forgiven. And that forgiveness is the free gift. That is the realization that you've never been anything other than the pure, innocent you. Once you do that, you can't help but look around and see exactly the same innocence in everyone. Now, that doesn't mean, and this is really important to get, because for a lot of people say, oh, you've got to forgive them. when we haven't yet processed what it is they've done to us. I mean, we are still responsible for our actions. If I've hurt somebody, I've hurt somebody. And I am responsible for that. I have to take ownership of that. And whatever people have done to me, they're responsible for that. They have to take ownership of that. So this isn't a letting somebody off the hook, which is often people want to hold on to that anger or condemnation of somebody else because they think if they let go of it, somehow their actions will be justified. And it's not the case. That's the nature of karma. Whatever you do will be done to you. It'll come back to you in some way. And in a certain sense, you can say, well, what if there was a whole bunch of things I did in a past life that made it absolutely essential that everything happened to me the way that I did in this life? I've had to come to terms with that. I had a horrific childhood. Just inconceivably painful that went on for years. And then I repeated it over and over in my adult life. Just mysterious pains and difficulties. I still have some things going up. I'm still processing stuff that is still in the body. But I know something now that I didn't know before, and that it is, these are states that are in the body, they're in the mind, they're in the emotions, but they're not in me. Me, the conscious witness of all of this, has never ever been touched. There is within me that original innocence that has never been touched. In fact, all the rest of this has buffered anything that might even get close to staining who I really am. In a very real sense, the body took the hit. It's kind of like the Secret Service man who takes the hit for the president, right? In order to protect the innocent. When you see that in yourself and you begin to recognize that that's who I am, you'll then naturally begin to see that's who everybody is. And that won't immediately make you, I'm going to go around hugging everybody. Exactly the opposite. You'll be very clear as to where people are. You won't make the mistake of trusting somebody who isn't trustworthy because you can see it, but there'll be no condemnation of you in it. And that is true forgiveness. Forgiveness is a state you arrive at. It's not something you do. And it's arrived at through this deep wisdom of understanding your true nature, which by extension then goes out to everybody else, and you see quite clearly that it's everyone's nature. Time to switch legs. Does that help? Does that make sense to you? Tabby, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce the name, but does that make sense to you? So it isn't a dismissal of what other people have done, nor is it a dismissal or a diminishment of the impact that their actions have had on you. But it is the only real way to be completely and totally healed of the effects of their actions. And once healed from the effects of their actions, you can say exactly what Christ said, Father, find them innocent, they don't know what they're doing. What a state to arrive at. It could just make me tear up. It just did, actually. Thank you, Tabby. Carl, hey GP, when doing inner child work, is that energy an aspect of the human mind, or is that original innocence of the divine mind? So the divine mind be observed? So many aspects to be united. The original innocence is the nature of the divine mind itself, which is completely innocent, free, untainted, pure. It is purely itself and absolutely nothing else. So it is not an aspect of the human mind. It is the redeemer of the human mind. It's what makes it possible for the human mind to free itself of all its illusions and delusions and missings of the mark and errors and mistakes and corruption and everything else that the ignorant human mind is subject to. It redeems it. It brings it back to its source and thereby purifies it until the human mind becomes the very presence of the divine mind. Because the divine mind can only be seen through what expresses it, right? Music can only be heard when somebody plays it. The greatest song is meaningless unless somebody gives voice to it. And the way they give voice to it is going to be unique for that particular form through which it comes. Be it, a solo guitar or a cappella choir or a full orchestra or a jazz band or a heavy metal band. Same song. It's always the same universal song, the one verse, the universe, but it's expressed in an infinite number of ways. So your original innocence is the divine mind. It is the true self. It is who you really are. It is not an aspect of you, nor is it an aspect of the human mind. It's not an aspect of anything. It's it. It is that of which everything else is an aspect. Either in its a positive aspect, either in its positive nature or negation. And the negation is simply the imagined or suppositional opposite, or the suppositional absence of that which it actually is, which is pure love, pure being, pure truth, pure intelligence, pure creativity, pure innocence. Innocence meaning simply it's pure. It's pure. There's nothing there that isn't inherent in it. Nothing has stained it. Nothing has glommed onto it. It is pure goodness. Does that help, Carl? I have become quite aware of myself and the judgment I hold about myself. For instance, I watched a movie last night and saw my reaction to myself for just watching a movie. Yeah, I was under the spell that I am to be constantly on my back to be spiritual, and if I veer off the path at DLL, such as watching a movie, it means I have not real true interests in spirituality. Oh, that is religion, not spirituality. That's just fundamentalism in the back door, isn't it? Do whatever you damn well please. And if you don't do what you damn well please, then you're not really being true to yourself, are you? The thing is that we judge, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, and I should always be doing the good things according to whatever somebody told me that good thing was supposed to be. And at one time it was all these religious tenets I do. Now it's I've got to be spiritual, I've got to be meditating 48 hours a day, and I've got to be able to levitate and manifest everything I want in a heartbeat. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. God wanted to watch a movie last night. I hope she enjoyed it. And if not, God's going to curse that movie. But isn't it interesting? Now notice this. I become aware of myself, very good, and the judgment that I hold about myself. Right? Well, let me put it more succinctly, put it more directly. The judgment that your mind holds about the self-image that is also held in the mind. Did you follow that? The mind is judging the image the mind is holding. It's not you. You're aware of the judgment. You're aware of this self that is being judged. You're aware of the whole process that's going on. You're aware of how it reacts when you sit down, put your feet up to watch a movie, maybe even have a beer or a glass of wine. Heavens, perish the thought. Maybe even have a little too much. And in the morning go, who cares? Do you think Jesus turned water into wine? You can bet your ass it was high quality wine. That was a Dom Perignon, right? That wasn't $2 Chuck. So, all enjoyment is ananda. Satchitananda, being, consciousness, and bliss, all enjoyment. Even whether you didn't like the movie, right? It's the experience. That's bliss. That's ananda. That is the aspect of the self that is simply enjoying itself. be it standing in a line or doing something really important or meditating and conversing with your own infinite nature, or watching a movie or making love or working on a car or vacuuming. It's all life, isn't it? What else could it be except what is unfolded in this moment? And you couldn't stop it if you wanted to. So spiritual growth is about self-acceptance. And the more that happens, you'll find that the stuff that really is just trivial, a trivial desire, will fall away. But that doesn't mean enjoyment falls away. That doesn't mean fun doesn't fall away. That doesn't mean desire and wanting and growing and learning and manifesting stuff falls away. Of course it doesn't. So notice that it is the mind getting on the back of the image that the mind holds of you, and it's not you, because you can see the whole thing. Disidentify both with the judgment and with the one who's being judged, and this thing will just completely fall away. How's that, Mary? Tabi asks, what's the role of God in manifestation if you are doing all? Have I misunderstood? Law of manifestation is equal to the law of logistic desires. Boy. I'm only making this sound because it hurts me so much when I see people who are steeped, as we have been in the West, in this idea of good desires, bad desires. One should have no desires. Desire is the root of all evil, right? Desire, it's attachment to desire, not the desire itself. Try to get rid of desire. Does anybody here not want to grow? Does anybody here not want to be enlightened? That's a desire. Should I get rid of that? Now, it's true, all desires eventually fall away. That is, all of our identification with one who relies upon the desire and thinks that desire is going to bring them something they don't already have, that falls away. But the act of desire is integral to human life. You can't have human life without it. So you take every desire that comes up as a gift from the divine mind, and you cherish it and you let it grow. It's like a seed planted in the garden, and you're not even really sure what plant it is. What's your job? I take care of the garden. I fertilize. I water. I weed. I protect it from rabbits and cold until it can grow to the point where it's strong enough to stand on its own. Desires are innocent, everyone. Everything is original innocence. So you own your desire and you work with it to make it purer and purer. So there's less of the ego grabbing it to get for the insatiable, hungry ghost that the ego is. There's less and less of that, and more of the pure desire itself. Every desire that arises is like a newborn baby. It's absolutely pure and innocent, a blank slate. And then it gets stuff put on top of it. It gets commandeered. It's got to be like this. It got to be like this. It gets distorted out of its natural shape. Our job is to keep it pure, which means to keep ourselves pure. And how else does the universe appear? Well, how could the universe have appeared at all if there wasn't within the divine mind a desire to produce it? And the big difference is the divine desire has simultaneously the divine capacity to fulfill that desire, and that is what you have as Ananda, or infinite bliss. Because without that, there'd be no circle of life at all. Does that answer it for you, Tabi? And anybody else who has questions about manifestation? I am launching a manifestation channel on top of the other channels that I do. Mystic Poet. Faith. Could you please tell me more about the Coherence process course? I'm not going to be selling that anymore because it's being redone. But it's a goals process. It's a way, but I don't like the word goals because it's been taken over so much by the success crowds, right? And the manifestation crowds. I want this and this and this. Coherence word is simply internal consistency. That everything within me is harmonized. All parts of me are working together. All 8 cylinders, or 16 cylinders, if you got a Mercedes, are all firing. Or 12 cylinders, whatever, I think it's 12. Are all firing in exactly the right way. So inner coherence is just where everything is just in harmony within us. And the process is simply a way of specifically using that for specific goals. So it isn't just coherence in general, right? That I'm the inner reconciling that I do, but it is now directed specifically to accomplishing things in life, right? So okay, I want this. I want I want a home, or I want a better income, or I want a creative job, or whatever it is that I want. Now these desires, you become coherent with them. And they become coherent with you, which means they become more and more pure. They become more and more a reflection of who you actually are. You drop more and more of the sense of limitations. And you watch what it is you're desiring transform over time as it matches closer and closer to who you really are, until you and it are one, and then you see it manifested in the world, in the 3D world, as this level of vibration, or whatever you want to call it. At that point, the quantum field starts to vibrate, and the thing appears to the senses. That's actually another definition of matter, or physical, is simple, whatever appears to the senses. We call it physical as it's separate. You take away the separate part, and what is appearing to the senses is the same consciousness to which it's appearing. Does that all make sense to everybody? Please? Let me know. My Sheikh, after our one-to-one session, I am daring more and more to be open that we are here for living a good life. I'm doing the self-care meditation, but it's so foggy. It's okay. It's okay. It will get clear. Be persistent. It will get clear. Sometimes it'll seem so foggy you can't find your way to your feet. Believe me. But you know it's true. I mean, as far as the carnal mind is concerned, the damage is done. The serum's in. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. I assure you. And yes, it will be foggy. Foggy to who? So fog appears on my window. Does that mean the things aren't there? Does that mean life as it really is isn't there? No, it's just fog. Okay, so there's fog. I'll wait for the fog to lift, right? Because the fog never covers up the sun. You can block it out temporarily, but the sun's 93 million miles away, shining so brightly you can't even look at it. And you are that sun. Mary, I see that I have this black and white thinking that it's totally devotion or not. Any suggestions to help me let this and see what I am? That I'm divine no matter what? I think I gave that to you. I think this was here before I made the comment. So tell me if you need more. Mystic Poet, I know I want freedom, avoidance, and expressive job. Acceptance, I think you meant. But I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do as a job. Could you please teach me a prayer to ask more clearness and surrendering simultaneously, since I don't want to control anymore, to do efforts anymore. I want to allow and receive, not earn and deserve. Allowing and receiving are not necessarily going out and earning and deserving. Because, right, to the relative world, I became a bit of a guru in the world of computers at the time. I'm completely out of date now. I'd be absolutely meaningless now. But at the time, it was, it was leading edge stuff. But I had to earn that, and I had to prove myself. and I had to, what were the words that you use? Yeah, and deserve it. I deserve the recognition because I accomplished something. Right? So on that level, there's nothing wrong with earning and deserving. The question is the state of mind you bring with it. Because the way I earned it and came to deserve it is I was completely open to allowing whatever thoughts came to me. And the entire way in which I did things unfolded to me perfectly. I mean, just brilliantly. And I had nothing to do with any of it. I was a scribe taking notes. I have no training in computer science. No idea how these things worked until I just fell upon one day. So here's what you do. You don't know what to do? Good. Do whatever's in front of you then. Whatever it is. I don't care how meaning. I cannot tell you. I don't think I have enough time to list all the jobs I've had. For everything from being a cook in a daycare center, a roofer, a mailman. I sold vacuum cleaners once. I lasted about a week. I sold one and it got returned. Sales was obviously not my calling. You can't believe the things that I have, the menial jobs I have. Every one of them contributed to me sitting here right now in front of you, being able to speak to you the way that I do. Because I did not lead a monochromatic life. So do whatever is in front of you to do. That is the practice. Whatever is there for you to do, do it. Do it wholeheartedly. Do it receiving and allowing. Open your heart to it completely. Give it 100% devotion, as if it was the most important job in the whole world, because for you it is. Why? Because it's the one you got. And if your job right now is simply looking for a job, then just look for the job. And if you've got one, then just give that job your all. Believe me, if you do, the next step will open up there or someplace else. And eventually you'll find that you take your job with you, and that you take your dignity with you, and that your world will begin to manifest that, reflect that back to you. I don't like the law of attraction, but I do like the law of reflection. The universe reflects you back to you, just like karma does. Karma is the mirror, that's all, nothing more. Let's see. Hendrik, Constance, Germany, Lake Constance, Germany. Hello, my friend, so good to see you. And thank you again for that generous donation you made. The camera is now my go-to, and it is all the things that I do that aren't live. I use that camera. And oh my goodness, it's so it has kind of raised the bar. Sally in England. Hello, Sally. Hi, and everyone else in the London contingent. God, I so want to do an event in London. Also out in Ireland as well. Please elaborate. You see humans like they are, their real innocence, without condemnation of their acts. No. Without condemnations of themselves. Their acts can be condemned, right? If somebody does something out of malice or steals, that act can be condemned, but it can also be revealed, and the one who did the act can be redeemed once they see that what they thought they were going to get from that act, they couldn't get, that it wasn't there to be gotten. Or they see that they were acting out unconscious, conditioned patterns, and were not acting conscious, they're not even making their own decisions, then they will be redeemed of it. But that doesn't make the act any less reprehensible, doesn't make it any less influential on you, the one who suffered the abuse of it. We are humble beings, not at the dust of feet of Jesus. How did you release your childhood pains and repetitive patterns in adulthood? I worked my ass off at it. That's how, and I'm still doing that. I have a wonderful new friend I've met who's a Sufi master. We've had incredibly marvelous conversations, and he is also a practitioner of somatic experiencing. We've had wonderful conversations about the non-dual meeting the Western mind, and the big thing that's missing in Western non-dual spirituality is the capacity to deal with trauma, to deal with the emotional disconnect we have with our bodies and our lives. And so we have wonderful conversations, but I also go to him and we do somatic experiencing, which is a process created by Peter Levine. He has his own, so I get a mixture of Sufi teachings and somatic experience, somatic traumatic release, because it's all in the body. The body keeps the score, as Bissell van de Kock put it. And so you work with the body. It took me a long time to come to understand that you worked with the body. I thought at one point, metaphysically, you could just transcend the whole thing. Boy, was I wrong. But that's how you do. That's how you do it. I mean, I can't give you here on YouTube during this setting of what it takes, because I've spent literally decades working on it and developing practices and processes and courses to help people do just that, as well as meeting people privately for one-on-one sessions. That's the only way you can do it. You need help. You need guidance. I mean, it's kind of the approach that I've been implementing in Om School, which is where all my courses are, is knowledge, practice, and guidance. You have to have all three. You have to know what you're doing. You have to practice it vigilantly, and you have to get guidance so the practice is perfect practice and not just practicing doing your mistakes over and over again. And the knowledge, the more you understand about how all this is, which is what I'm explaining here, the more the practice will be effective. So I hope that answers it for you as best I can under these circumstances. Hello, Peter. Blessings to you. GP, you seem a realized being. How ordinary human beings realize that innocent wake up from the mortal dream. How do ordinary humans do that? Well, a lot of it has to do with grace. You can't make it happen, but at the same time, you're already under grace because you're here listening to me. If grace wasn't shining on you and you weren't receptive to it, you wouldn't be here. So it's happening already. It's not something you need to do. You are being taken lovingly by the hand and being guided all the way up to your oneness. Thank you too, my dear friend. Hey, Brent, Brother G. Can you break down how this is ultimately unconditional love? It just doesn't really feel that way. Unconditional love is not the big, mysterious, otherworldly, divine, glorious thing that unconditional love, like love was somehow this fine china you kept on a shelf and only used at special occasions and never let the kids use it at all. They got the everyday stuff and sat at their own table. Unconditional love is accepting things just the way they are. That's it. That's all there is to it. If I'm doing something really stupid, I accept the fact that I'm doing stupid. I accept what is happening unconditionally, not trying to make it anything other than what it is. Simple as that. The moment you do that, that is unconditional love. That's also wisdom. It's also power. And when you accept things as they are, it opens the door to accepting yourself as you are. Right? We all say, oh yeah, once I know who I really am, then I'll accept myself. Who you really are is what is happening right now in your life. However it looks to you, that is the real self experiencing life the way it was meant to experience it, which means all the ups and downs, every last bit of it. So, unconditional love is simply allowing things to be the way they are, not trying to reframe them or change them or transcend them or anything, including owning the fact that you want things to be different, you want to improve, you want your life to grow. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're experiencing, you are feeling it, you are experiencing it. The simple recognition that, yes, I am feeling this. I wish I wasn't feeling this. This isn't particularly happy, but I am feeling it. That recognition is unconditional love. That's it. That's all there is to it. I cannot give a simpler breakdown. So hopefully you said how this is ultimately unconditional love. I hope I covered that. If I missed something, Brent, please bring it up again, because that was a short answer, but I think that's all it required. Mary, thank you for your answer, G. I think I was triggered by a judgment back in my years when I was involved with fundamentalist Christianity, where a woman heard that I watched a movie and had a heart attack right there, and they made me responsible for her death. She made the comment to me that I was not being a good Christian by watching that movie. And as if criticizing or condemning somebody else makes you a good Christian. I got 2 words for you, lady, and they ain't let's dance. My goodness. My goodness, what we do to each other. Oh. What we do to each other in the name of goodness. Good God. Sergey, holy, holy, holy blessings to all of you, sending unconditional love, sending divine love, sending agape love to all of you. Thank you, Sergey. I totally receive it. Ah, beautiful. Jill, I'm on a plane to Kaaba. Isn't modern technology great? Cabo, I mean. Well, you have fun. Yay, you have yourself a lot of fun. Isn't it amazing? You can get satsang on a plane. Lovely. Let's see. Bank the fortnight, GG. Bank the fortnight. Bank is a fortnight. I sometimes find myself struggling with being warm or loving towards myself, because my mind then says, if I'm not real, why love myself? Also, no idea who or what I am. Well, very good. You're never going to know who you are because you're too infinite to know. Can you know the infinite? Only in part. That doesn't mean you're not infinite. It just means that the manifestation of the infinite only happens in part. It's completely made manifest, but not all of it. It's really that simple. The universe as a whole is but the flash of this moment in the mind of God, or the divine mind, if you say, if you prefer. Having a hard time being warm or loving with yourself is simply a habit of the mind. So when you attempt to do it, when you attempt to be loving or warm towards yourself, your mind will come up with all sorts of... Now, this is the discursive mind. This is the mind that is eluded or is deluded. So it's going to come up with all the reasons why you shouldn't do that. Maybe before it was, you're not worthy of that, you haven't earned it yet, you don't deserve it, look at all the bad things you've done, and then show you the laundry list of all your fuck-ups. Right? Later on, as you get more spiritual knowledge, it starts using spiritual knowledge against you. Like, well, if you're not real, why should you even bother? Well, you shouldn't love yourself. Isn't that what you shouldn't love what isn't real? It's the same strategy. And the strategy is to keep you from loving yourself, because the image that the mind holds of you is not lovable. The mind is looking at a picture of you that isn't you and going, God, that's not lovable. Why should you love that? And that picture, correct, isn't real. It's just an image in the mind. But that's where the mind is directing its attention towards. There's a story that is attributed to Alexander the Great when he had conquered yet another place and taken down all the local statues and put up statues of himself. Humble fellow. And one of the people who worked for him came and said that there was that one of the statues, they'd thrown rocks at it and broke the head off. And said, what should we do? What should we do to them? And he looks at him and goes, funny, I don't feel a thing. The mind is directing all of its venomness towards the image that is in the mind. If you realize the image in the mind isn't you, you go, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't, that isn't real. And you know what? I think I love it anyway. I love the fact that this image can be there. And I love the fact that this image is just an image, which means I can change it any time I choose. That this is not really me. And that the real me is obviously the one that's looking at it. And the mind cannot see me because I'm bigger than it can possibly imagine, and I don't have any moving parts. I am the shunyata. I am the emptiness, which means the mind will look at me and can't see me. It cannot hold an image of me. It made one up. The image that the mind made up is what we call the ego, or the sense of identity, or the self-image. When you know that you are not that, it begins to dissolve. And as it begins to dissolve, the mind will start doing things like it's doing. Not because it's malicious, not because it wants to hurt you, but because that's how it learned how to protect you. Because if it can keep you from loving yourself, it can keep you from the criticism or judgment or even pain you may have experienced when you expressed yourself when you were younger as having value. And in order to control you, people around you, maybe even your parents, devalued you to make you more subordinate to them. And that simply became a habit. So the mind thinks, boy, if he loves himself, he's really going to get hurt. That's its motivation. You see, the mind too is just motivated by love, the desire to protect you. Love motivates everything, my friend. Does that help? Mystic, when it comes to apply for jobs, there are barriers. I don't have work permit. I'm not good enough. I need to learn more and more. I need to do courses, portfolio. It's exhausting. When I feel about it, it makes me afraid. I feel I'm wasting my time. Well, you know what? Let's do this. I want you to look at each one of these things. It says, I have barriers. Right? Now, you don't have any barriers. The only time you have a barrier is if you convince yourself you have barriers. Your thinking creates the experience. It is not reality, thank God. When reality enters into the picture, we no longer, we have the discrimination to be able to question the belief that there are barriers. Are there any barriers to God? Then there aren't any barriers to you. So then it starts listing. The mind says, well, there's a barrier. This is obviously why it isn't working. You don't have a work permit. You're not good enough. You need to learn more and more. You need to have more courses, a better CV. And isn't it tiring? None of those are true. Absolutely none of those are true. But if you believe them strongly enough, you will experience them as if they are true, and thus seem to confirm what in fact is a false belief. So throw it all out. You have no barriers. And every time the mind gives you a reason why, I say, well, thank you for trying to keep me safe. I will work on a permit. I will do courses. I will make sure my CV is up to date, because that's a good thing to do. But I refuse to accept that I have any barriers to me being gainfully employed, doing something that I like or at least enjoy, doing what's in front of me in this moment. And then you'll find emotional stuff will come up. The mind will want you to be afraid, right? What if, and all sorts of scenarios. What if it never happens? What you going to do? You got to go back, blah, 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 blah. And just turn it into a blah, 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 because that's all it is. There are no barriers. That's the fact. That is the ultimate, absolute, unchanging reality. Now your job, the job of everybody, is to bring our thinking, which contradicts that, into alignment with it. This is the harmonization. They wrongly refer that as raising your vibration. It's not. You're vibrating. You're not vibrating at all because you're the infinite. when you vibrate, reality happens. A whole universe happens. So you are taking the mind in its ignorance, and you are bringing it back to the truth of it, so the mind can reflect the truth, that there are no barriers, there are no limitations, there are no problems. There's nobody against me. There are no circumstances that can influence my life at all. The only thing that can influence me is me. That is the ultimate power that we all possess, and the ultimate responsibility that we all need to wield. I'll leave it at that. Faith. CM. Why the body keeps holding on to all these traumas because it's not safe enough yet for it to let go. We keep creating and recreating the circumstances in which the traumatized energy says, no, it's not safe, I can't let it go, we have to stay in this state. Which is why when I teach inner reconciliation, it's always the same. It all starts with making a space that's safe enough that the body begins to feel as if it's okay to let go of the traumas. Remember, it's not holding on to this stuff because it wants to, because it thinks this is a great thing, this is a wonderful thing, I really want to hold on to this, it's so much fun. It's exactly the opposite. It doesn't want it. It didn't want it in the first place. It had to do it. It did it in order to be able to protect you and itself from the danger that was real at that time. And it just hasn't gotten the message that it's no longer real. So even the act of, I've got to get rid of these traumas, creates a conflict, doesn't it? That puts you, I got to get rid of this. Well, as far as the nervous system is concerned, it's telling me to get rid of the thing that's keeping us safe. What is he, an idiot? And it digs in its heels. And yes, it is idiotic. So instead what you do is, oh, I understand why we're in the shape that we're in. What can I do to make it safe? And then all the things you know you can do, like stop condemning it, stop fighting it, and instead go, what can I do? How can I make it safe for us? How can I pour in so much unconditional love that you don't need to hold on to these defensive mechanisms anymore? Because that's what a trauma is. It is a defensive mechanism that restricts energy from going into its natural channels, because at one time in your life, when it did go into that natural channels, you got hurt badly. It says, nope, can't go there, and it holds on to it. That's what a trauma is. Why can't it just let it go? Or process it and move on, and why it needs to store it for the rest of the life. Can you understand what I'm saying? That's why. Because it isn't safe enough yet for it to let it go. The moment it becomes safe, bam, it's gone. It's not stupid. It's like the river up against a dam, right? There's only so much it can do. We take the dam away and what happens? It knows exactly what to do. The problem is the dam, not the river. Oh, same to you, Sergey. Same to you. What's that other little thing at the end? Oh, a tornado. Fantastic. Does that help you, CM? Right? I mean, we need to become self-loving. That's it. Unconditional self-love. If you really understand how the traumas happened, you'd not see them as a problem or as an enemy anymore. The moment you don't see them as a problem and as an enemy, you begin to cooperate with them. And in that moment, the danger in the environment begins to drop at least a few notches, and stuff begins to happen. The energy begins to move. The reason I use EFT is because it is a process by which safety is communicated directly to the body, bypasses the mind, and it does it through touch, which is far more potent than words. Our need for touch, the mammalian, the limbic brain has been around for 250 million years. The cognitive brain, 3 million tops, about 100,000 years in its current form. So 250 million versus 3 million, which do you think is more potent? A touch or a thought? Hug. Get hugged a lot. Use your body. Exercise it. Do yoga or qigong, or I like to go work out with weights. Use the body. Walk. feed it correctly, take care of it, and it'll start getting the message, oh, I'm safe. I'm safe with this guy. He's finally getting it, the ignoramus. I remember when I first discovered this stuff, maybe 20 years ago, that this is really how it worked. And I had kind of a waking dream, a waking vision, and this one guy, the safety mechanism, I was talking archetypally with the safety mechanism, and I said that, oh, I know you have to keep me safe, and I've kind of made it a hard job. And there's this look on his face, in the image of my mind going, Jesus, the idiot finally got it. But it opened up the space. And the idiot finally did get it. So, if that doesn't answer it for you, CM, please let me know. Hi, GP. It's Robert Freeman. Hello, Robert. Nice to see you too. Well, I don't get to see anybody, but there's so much has fallen away with the tapping. Almost all belief in the mind stories has dropped away. Beautiful. It's almost like the body wants to act out the stories and out of habit, but lacks the fuel. That's it. Yeah, the impulse will still be there, but it won't have the power behind it anymore. And that's when new directions, your natural creative impulses now will be freed up, and the body will start doing different things, and better too. They leave me stuck in so many moments with unbridled discomfort and scorned emotions. However, with no ability to solve for X, no longer A needs to solve for X, just sitting with the emotion, the story unable to be acted out any longer. Yes, this is a very wonderful and amazing place to be at. It can also be very uncomfortable. It means that there's not enough energy anymore for the habitual behaviors to just take over and go and run with it. That you can't. There's not enough energy for that to happen, but the transformation isn't complete yet, which will start redirecting that energy down really healthy, creative channels that mean something to you. So you're like, the meter is going from defensive to expressive, but it doesn't need to go ding. It never just goes ding. It always has to kind of go like suddenly. So first off, just enjoy this wonderful space in which you are not unconsciously driven by the habits. First, just the freedom of being in that space. Just consider it. Just really relish into it. The more you relish into it, the more energy goes to it. The other thing I would recommend that you do is that you start giving some really quality time to what it is you want in your life. So how would I like my life to actually go? Where would I like to live? Who would I like to be with? What kind of contributions would I make? What do I really care about? How would I like to spend the rest of my life in such a way that that it really is totally meaningful to me? And then the mind will come and say, yeah, well, you can't do that. That's really hard. Or how are you going to make that happen? And that's the old regimen. You want to give the visionary part of you some leeway to come up with a vision for your life, because that's what tips the scale the rest of the way. When we're completely lost in our habitual behaviors, the only vision we can have our life is to not be lost in it. But when we get to that point where we aren't lost in it anymore, then there is this space. We need to start giving space to what I call the visionary, because there's a part of you that has a vision for what this particular human life is supposed to be about. And when this energy is freed up, it's time for that energy to take over. And then what happens, everything that had been restricting you in the past now becomes the support that actually makes the things for your future happen. Instead of fighting you, it's cooperating with you. It's supporting you. It is the energy that actually makes things happen in the 3D world, where it becomes what we call material. That is the substance of what appears, or physical. That is anything that appears to the senses. So it appears not just as a dream or as an ambition or a vision, it actually appears as what is experienced as reality, but in fact isn't reality. The reality appearing is what happens. So, Jill, Mary just wrote to Jill that the movie was about Cabo. Good for that. Story unable to be active. P.S. Did Discover your charge back? What? Did Discover return your charge back? Oh, yes. Yes, I think all of that was taken care of. Yeah, all of that was done. Thank you, Robert. Tapping has been tremendous. Yes, perfect. Yeah, it was perfect. It was the perfect thing for you. The very perfect thing for you. And I was really happy to move the mic over here a little bit. Oops, now the mic is showing. Can't have that. Yes, it's the perfect thing for you, and I would keep that practice up for a while. Watch all of my videos. It doesn't even matter what the subject is. And there's some other people in the tapping community that I recommend as well. Brad Yates, Steve Wells, Carol Look. Carol Look is who I went through the training with on EFT. So anyway, very good, very good. Oh man, that makes me so happy to hear. Can't wait to talk to you again. Jay, would you say being aware of your true nature, of your true self, is showing love to your body? Yeah. Well, actually, I think I answered my own question because I was thinking of Ramana and Nisargadatta. Both of them actually went on walks, and to Ramana, Arunachala was idol worship, I feel like. Yeah, it was. Because Ramana was aware of the dual nature of things. He was aware of the divinity and the humanity, that they were not two, and that was the whole point. And so he stood in the middle as Ramana, because he was in the middle. He was both at the same time. He was in the world and not in the world. He was transcendent and he was very, very human. Yeah, he'd take his walks all day. He loved the mountain because it wasn't just a mountain, a big blob of dirt. It had a life, it had a spirit. And if you listen to Native Americans, you can see the same thing. And if you really take it in, you can look around and say, my God, it's alive. This is alive. This tree outside my window it's a god. So, for many native cultures, Aboriginal cultures, there was an animus. The universe was alive. It hadn't been reduced to our Western concept of just a mechanistic pile of matter. It was living things, and they saw behind it. They saw behind it the invisible force, and that's what they referred to as God. The tree wasn't God, but the energy of which the tree was a manifestation was. And they saw it in the crows and the hummingbirds and the foxes and the wolves and the bison. Everything had this energy about it, and so they all had various kinds of meanings. Everything from an ant to a field mouse to an elephant. And we lost that. We lost even Newton and Descartes believed in a God, that this was God's perfect universe ordered in a particular way. It was into the 20th century that the animus was completely removed from everything, and it became completely materialistic processes, much to our suffering, because it's simply not the fact. There is an intelligent aliveness behind every single object, even if it's an inanimate object. And I swear, you look at some of these mountains and you kind of go, yeah, you're right. I drive down I-5 often. Whenever I'm heading south and it's a clear day, I can see Mount Rainier 200 miles away. There's this, all of a sudden I'm driving on this incredible mountain on a clear day, just standing there in this just power, and it's alive. I'm sorry, it's alive. It's not a life form like you and I would know. It doesn't have a nervous system or anything, but so what? My nervous system doesn't have a nervous system. How does it do what it does? Everything lives. Everything is life. The only mistake is that it isn't. It is a manifestation of life. It is the reflection of life. The life is the indivisible, non-spatial self-awareness. And the manifestation of it is what we call the universe and objects and human beings. CM. Yes, I understand. Just when I'm in the middle of a reaction or trigger, it's hard to keep this in mind. I just want to get rid of the very uncomfortable emotions and reactions ASAP, and I get angry. And just notice that that's all part of the same trigger. This is all part of the same trigger. I hope you can begin to see that the wanting to get rid of it, calling the emotions uncomfortable than just what they are, just another fluctuation in the force. Call these uncomfortable emotions, which means by definition I want to get rid of them, and the reactions. Then you get angry that you can't, but all of that is appearing in the field of the screen of perception, isn't it? And so if you see that, then you have the stake in the ground. It's not going to go away immediately. The reactions are still going to be there, but it's just a deeper place to put the stick in the ground, so that you can then begin to free up yourself from that. And as that space opens up, something else is going to come up. You keep going, and eventually nothing more arises. And then you are universally and eternally free. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. I just love being around my wife and kids. That is so delightful to hear, and I could see that when I was talking to him. We were talking one-on-one. I could just see how much you love them. Let's see, Jay. When I was leaving India, there was a coconut tree in the back of our house, and I took a good look at it and gave it a big hug. I probably looked weird if anyone was watching, but oh well. Oh, I have hug trees, and you can feel them. My God, can you feel them? Especially the ones that have been around for a long time, big trunks and stuff, like you can't even get your arms around them, you're just kind of almost flat. Yeah, and the ones that are really old, they're powerful. I felt a sadness that I was going to miss everything around there that I was familiar with. It still brings back good memories, especially when I started looking at these from the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Everything is alive. That is, everything does not have consciousness, does not have life. Everything is consciousness, is life. The universal consciousness is manifested as what we call things. But they're not things at all, any more than the image on a screen is a thing. It's just a representation of that which is. And on that note, I think I'm going to bring it to a close today. I'm getting kind of tired. I'm in the middle of moving to a place that I think I'll be at for a while. It's a beautiful place. Maybe I'll post an image of it. I have a nice view overlooking a big, huge window overlooking a lake. I have lake access. My granddaughter and I can go swimming in the lake. There's a little dock there and some rafts and a boat and stuff. So I found a very lovely place to live, and until such a time as, I don't know. Until when, I don't know. But for now, the next 2 months, I don't actually go into the new place until May 1st. The next 2 months, I'm going to visit I'm going to stay with my son and grandchildren here. Then I'm going down to visit my other son in Phoenix. So I'll be down in Arizona for about a week. I'm coming back up, and I've rented myself a nice place up in, about 5 hours north of here, up in Canada, 3 hours north of Vancouver, where I'm just going to stay and write and be quiet. I will be doing satsang from there. I will be doing the looking class, which is going to be changing. Starting in March, I'm only going to be doing the looking class 2 days out of the month rather than 4. It's just a lot. But there will be one this week, of course. Anybody who wants to join in, you can. For a small subscription, you get to meet with me on Zoom, where we can work one-on-one on things for a very reasonable price. And I'll be doing that twice a month. When I come back, I will be staying at the place where I take care of the kitties for 2 weeks, and then I will be moving into my new place. For the next 2 months, I'm a bit of a vagabond, although I will be keeping in touch with you all, and of course, if I do get incognito, Lisa always knows where I am and how to get in touch with me. So thank you all. So I'm now going to get back to figuring out what I'm going to keep, what I'm not going to keep, and what I need to pack up. So thank you, guys. I love you all so much. Thank you, says Mary. Many thanks. Another illuminating satsang. Good luck with the move. Much happiness in your new home. Thank you, David and Elaine. Thank you, guys. So everyone, until next time, until 2 weeks from today, and I will be in Arizona, I think, 2 weeks from today. Yes. So I'll be celebrating my birthday with my son down there, which will be really nice. So all my love to you all. Good night to those of you who are at night, and good morning and good day to the rest. So love you all. Namaste.